Welcome to Laugh, Cry, or Die, a comedy disability podcast hosted by two people who are terrible at being alive. My name is Steve Wilbury, and always is my co host, Naomi Strain.
Hello.
And today we have a special guest, Cam
Hello,
Calkoen.
guys. It's an honor to be here. Can't wait. I'm excited. I'm
Oh
nervous.
my gosh. Cam Calkoen, already very good at lying. Fantastic. So, most of the listeners know I have had 8 surgeries. I have complex regional pain syndrome. I can't really work or do things. So, I stand on stage and do magic tricks because that's all I'm good for. And Naomi, what's your deal?
I have seizures all the time. So I have epilepsy and functional neurological disorder, and I have 1 or 2 seizures a week to keep things exciting.
You're so boring most of the time.
I know.
And Cam, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? What's your deal?
Yeah, for those who maybe think I'm a bit pissed, I'm not. I was born with cerebral palsy, but it fixed away in which messages travel around my body. But what you hear and what you see is what you get. I live a pretty awesome life. I've been honored to represent our country in sport, climb some big mountains, and every single day I speak with audiences all over New Zealand and throughout the world. So it's my
Yeah, so
deal.
you do a lot of motivational speaking, Cam. That's kind of your bag, isn't it?
Inspirational speaking is how I like to put it.
Uh,
I believe, I can inspire people. I can walk the horse to water or whatever the saying is, but motivation is you've got to move, right? You've got to then take action, and that's up to the individual. But there's a desire in what I do, but I provide enough inspiration that they go out there and go, you know what, fuck. I've always wanted to do that thing, and I'm going to go out there and I'm going to smash it.
Is that something, have you always been like that since you're a little kid?
I've always been a dreamer, I remember, my tree house, it was bigger, it was more gnarly than any other tree house in the neighborhood, had broken windows, and a massive slide, and when I'd get to the top, I'd dream a dream. And then in things like school assembly, when you're here in I was in Hawke's Bay, and you're sitting on my old school floor, and you're getting a sore ass, you're sitting down, and I just imagine myself like being a fighter jet or being in the army. And, never once did I think I couldn't do that. It was just a way of getting through the challenge of being in assembly. And then as I got older, I just repositioned that into stuff that I actually could do.
One of the things that's kind of interesting about the guests that we've had on is you were obviously born with cerebral palsy. You have this is the life that you've always had.
Yeah.
Whereas Naomi and I found our way to disability. And
Yeah.
something that I find like a lot of people with, I guess, acquired disabilities, um like there's this thing where you're like, I'm not an inspiration, I'm just me, I'm just trying to get along, I'm just trying to, like, I'm just a human being, but the people that we've talked to who have been disabled since birth have been more comfortable with that inspiration label. I think that, like, you say, yeah, I can do this thing, whereas Naomi and I, our brains tend to focus more on the things we can't do.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different journey, right? And, sometimes I wake up and I wonder to myself, what would it be like if no one ever told me I had cerebral palsy?
Yeah.
Because I don't go out there to inspire people to go, the worst thing I want is someone to walk away and go, well, if Cam can do it, I can do it. Because every single one of us has different challenges, your challenges are your challenges are real, and what you perceive to be my challenges, I probably don't even really think about. So I've just gone. A lot of people are living a life where they either get comfortable or they stop striving towards more. And I'm talking right across the board here. I'll speak at events at schools, right through to real estate, corporate, all sorts. People going through challenges in life, whatever that may be, people who are hugely successful. And my kind of challenge, my inspiration is just, are you making the most of that opportunity that you do have, whatever that opportunity
Mm.
may be?
I love
Like
that.
in my show, kind of the central one is that whatever you want to do, don't be scared of it, because that thing that you're scared of with the thing that you want to do cannot be worse than the horrible things that life can randomly throw at you. Like I've broken my elbow, I've had gangrenous gallbladders, I've had screws come loose. So why not do the cool thing? You know, you could get hit by a bus tomorrow walking your way to your job that you hate, so you might as well try it, you know?
Yeah, that's my sort of logic as well, is that I've had seizures in public and pissed myself, and that's really embarrassing. And so nothing else I do is an issue because it's not that. And so like recently we did a stage show, and my mantra is, if things go wrong on stage, at least you're not pissing yourself. And I think that's a good motto to live by.
Yeah, and you know, everything comes down to perspective, and just you just you know, instead of worrying about the way I talk, because the first time I was asked to give a speech, I was like, what the fuck? Like, I can't even understand myself sometimes, you know, and you want me to speak, but I remember I used to love watching Formula One and all the sports, and it was in the time of Michael Schumacher, and he just won a championship and another championship, and he'd be interviewed, and you know, this is a guy that's just way up there, and I was like, man, that guy's got an accent. That guy's got the thickest accent, this thick German accent. I've never, you know, I'm struggling to understand, but should I admire what he's done? And so I'm going to tune in as much as I can to understand that. And it was at that point where I was like, well, what's the difference between that accent and my cerebral palsy? So instead of seeing it as a speech impediment, what would my life look like if I saw that as an accent?
It would be really shit though if you had cerebral palsy and you were German and you were trying to speak English. You would be incomprehensible.
German people with cerebral palsy.
Good luck, good luck. But you know, I was jumping in an Uber the other day here in New Zealand, where I live, and the Uber driver said, "Where's your accent from?" And I just thought that was awesome. You know, I thought, wow, it's this real thing of that's what I've been telling myself. And now here's a guy who's no idea who I am. He doesn't know what I do as a job, and you know, and he said, "Where's your accent from?" And
That's
sometimes
cool.
when I jump in a taxi and they do say, where are you from? I always say, oh, like I'm flipping burgers at McDonald's. And not because it's just that when you say you're an inspirational speaker, people go, oh, awesome. Can you inspire me now?
Yes.
And I bet you give us, Steve, you know, Stephen, with your magic, you know, you might say, I'm just oh, cool, give me a trick, you know, or I'm a comedian, and they go, oh, have I got a joke for you, you know?
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay, I have a minor story that's amazing. So I was at Dunedin Fringe. By complete coincidence, met the original drummer from the Alice Cooper band, who is this old guy in his 70s, who was a super rad dude, but he was an old guy who found out he was sitting at a table of comedians and proceeded to whip out some astonishingly old-timey racist jokes and told us about the time sexually assaulted the woman he was standing next to and just grabbed her tits. And then he was like, and I bet she never washed those tits again. And we were like, she did. She definitely washed those tits.
I'll buzz that name out in the edit. We don't want to get done for that.
What? He's dead.
Yeah, but still, it's like kind of, we can't make unfounded claims. Now we've got to edit it out twice.
What are you talking about? A random American cruise ship tourist told me that happened, so it's got to be true.
Oh, true. Yeah, absolutely.
Have you?
And thing, I mean, that cruise ship tourist is now like, oh shit, they're relaying my story. How cool is that?
Yeah.
But we were talking to him for a bit, and then he was like, I don't normally show this picture, and it was a picture of like young him, and he was like, that's Alice Cooper, and he showed us like the picture of his Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I was like, I'm pretty sure you show that to a lot of people.
Yeah, he's got it ready to go.
Ready to go. And we were like, you know, he's never had any of his beliefs challenged. Good for him. You know, he's had a good run.
You wanna challenge beliefs, you know, and I think a lot of people stop and I remember once I was speaking and this guy came up to me and he said, "Oh, Cam, you travel, you go to all these places, you go to third world countries. So when you go to those third world countries, you must get a hard time, mate. You must be like a victim of bullying and all that stuff." And I was like, actually, no, I've never been mugged, none of that stuff. And I felt really sorry for him because he's a full-on, able-bodied, normal, successful guy having that assumption. And why I was concerned about that wasn't for how he perceived me, but what happens in his life if something comes up and he gets challenged or acquires a disability? What is he
Mm.
going to believe about himself then? And therefore, how much is he going to limit his potential or the potential of someone who may come to him once and apply for a job and all he's going to see is everything that guy can't do. And, it's a bit like when someone tells me about a kid who's just been diagnosed with cerebral palsy and they say, oh, he'll never be able to play football. And I'm like, well, you know, shit.
Well, do you
What
know
about
that
what
you know
about
the
the
now
billion other things that he can do? And he only needs to do one, and you only need to do one really good, and you can.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you were born, like when you were young, what were there limits put on what you can do? Were there expectations of what you'd be
did
able
yeah
to,
did teachers say like, oh no, you can't go out for the football team, or you can't do this
or,
thing or
or
that thing?
even like medically, like with the doctors and
Yeah,
stuff,
at
was it
first,
like,
at first, all of that stuff. So the doctors presented mum and dad, they said, he's going to have a great future in his wheelchair and, walking frames and calipers and speech therapy and physiotherapy. That will be life. And for the first 7 years, we did do that. We did do the physiotherapy. We did do the speech therapy because there was something in that. But what I found really annoying is that everyone would always compare me to an able-bodied person, or they'd say, "Oh, he can't touch his toes. That's a really bad thing. So bad he can't touch his toes." And I'm like,
Mm.
what the heck do I need to touch my toes for? I'm pretty happy to be standing up vertical. And then it wasn't until I got into athletics and I became very competitive and I got to a world championship level. And it was at that point in my life where I realized if I'm stronger, flexible, and more mobile, or stronger and flexible, I'll be faster, right? And so now I had a reason for doing all that stuff the doctors and physios were asking me to do. So I think what's really important is everyone needs to ask you, what is your dream? And if you don't have
Mm.
a dream yet, what do you want to be able to do? I always wanted to live a life where I could travel, where I could entertain, and where I could connect. I didn't know how I was going to get there, but when opportunities came up, like sport, I was like, well, if I get really good at that, I'll be able to travel and I'll be able to entertain. And then when the opportunity came up to speak, I'd be like, well, if I get really good at that, I'll be traveling and entertaining and connecting people and people with inspiration. So it's just always come down to how you perceive that.
I
And
mean, so with your speech, do
yeah.
you think that like working and doing the speaking and the motivational speaking and stuff, like you said, is the motivational inspirational? I can't remember. I have no
Yeah,
memory.
well, inspirational, but
Inspirational. All right.
yeah,
The
yeah,
public speaking. Do
yeah,
you think that kind of became like a functional speech therapy almost, and you found that like over
100%,
time your speech got better?
100%. It's a muscle, it's a strength, you're learning about cadence and moving and what calms you down, and you know,
So if you
and
so if you're
that's
like
a
if
moving target. It's always moving. Like just I might nail one speech, but when you get all this other stuff, you get expectations and you get what are they now thinking of me, and you always get that voice inside your head. And it's that voice inside your head that can just put you into a spin, and then you start talking fast and you start losing words and all that
So
stuff.
when you get if you have like a really big speech and you've got stage fright and your nervous system is wound up because there's all this stuff going on, is that when you find that you start to notice the, I guess, dysfunction, for want of a better word, a bit more?
Yeah, well, it's where I notice I've got to really focus on this. I've got to really go, okay, yeah, I can be thinking about the 2,000 people that are in the audience. I can be thinking about, oh my gosh, I'm going to get so hot and I'll be sweaty, and what if I forget my words, and what if I'm not long enough, or, in terms of time, all that stuff. Or I just stop and I start doing figure of eights in my head, in my mind. I start doing left right brain exercises and just going, what is the feel that I want these people to get? And what I
Mm.
want people to get is I want them to walk away having spent 60 minutes and gone, my life, my life can be what I want it to be.
It's and I think one of the things. Sorry, you're not getting to say much, Naomi. Tell me if I'm nattering too much. I've had a bit of
That's
meds this
that's
morning.
right. It's like watching TV. I just sit here and enjoy it.
But like one of the things that I find separates, especially in magic and stand-up comedy, like the good from the great, is this: when people start off on stage, they often are wanting to get something from the audience. They want that validation and the good feeling of everyone clapping and saying that you're funny. But when you come out and you're trying to give something to the audience, I think then, and you're thinking about like, I'm wanting to bring them the happiness, you automatically get back that thing that you want. You get the validation, you get the stuff. But if you come from that giving place, your connection to the audience is 1,000 times more solid, and you're going to have like a more successful performance, I
I
think.
guess that's a little bit of like letting go of your own ego. If you're going on the stage going, look at me, I'm amazing, give to me, then you're not going to have that same connection of you're amazing, you can do these things, you're going to have a wonderful night. And so,
Mm.
yeah, if you can let go of your own narcissist view of yourself,
Yeah.
and
Well,
then
well, most people who go on stage are profoundly narcissist in the first
well,
place.
yeah, but the trick is we don't let them know. That's where the acting comes in, darling.
But I think what you've articulated there is something that I was aware of my entire life, and therefore this is why I do what I do as a presenter, because I could have gone into the school and always gone, well, what are these people going to give me? Because a lot of people say, did you get bullied at school and a hard time and all that stuff? But I was always like, what can I do to build a connection with all these kids here? Because
Mm.
if I walk into a school and I start acting a bit weird because I'm scared that people aren't going to accept me, and I'm hiding in the corner and I'm not talking with people and I'm not letting people know who I am, and I'm not wishing people a good day, and I'm not smiling at people, people are going to think I'm weird anyway, right? And then you throw in the fact that you walk different and talk different, and you've just created this big storm for yourself in terms of how the school or the universe perceives you.
Yeah, like my very first acting job, I got the role. Actually, the way I got the role is I bumped into the guy who's making the film, and he said, "Oh, I think you'd be really good as an extra in this film. I'll send you the information." So he sent it through, and it said, "Looking for criminal low-life scum." And I was like, "Well, thanks very much for saying I'd fit that." But the night before we started filming, he called me and said, "What do you like at delivering lines?" And I went, "Yeah, awesome." Had never delivered a line in my life, but I thought, well, if I say I'm awesome, I'll get it. And so on the night of filming, it got to when I was going to say my line, and I was like, oh my God, I feel so shy, I feel so embarrassed. And it was like, I just want to hide a little bit and I'm going to say it a bit quietly. And they were like, okay, time to say your line. And I thought, I've got to shout it. It was an angry line. And I thought, it's going to look pathetic if I say it a bit meekly. And so I had to belt it out. And it was like, at that point, it was like, oh, if you just go all in and sod what anyone might think and let go of that embarrassment of not wanting to draw attention to yourself, it had a much better impact. It went really well. And I got a few roles from that. And so it's like, you have to throw yourself into things and you're probably going to get a better outcome from it.
Totally. I think something you touched on before, Cam, was like, when you're before you're going on stage and you can't think about the 2,000 people and the stress and the this and the that. And it's something that Naomi and I get as well, is like it's this imposed mindfulness, like all these successful, able-bodied people who are just going through their lives without thinking and worrying about X, Y, and Z. They need to go, get an app and do a course and learn to be mindful and to focus on the present and all these things. But in order to get through the course of our disabilities, you have to be mindful, because if you don't, you're lost, really, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the being on stage and stuff like that really helps, because you're aware of how you're feeling, but you're also your acting, or or your performing brain is happening. So you're living alongside yourself. And so you're very aware of how you're presenting, how you're saying things, how you're reacting. And like you say, Steve, that the sort of disability forces you to try and calm, try and look at yourself. And so you kind of have no option but to be mindful.
I express it as you're stepping outside your comfort zone and into the comfort zones of others. And if you can do that, then you start to also merge the familiar with the familiar. So I remember, and I because I've had cerebral palsy my whole life, I'm able to get so much from my life experiences, and especially primary school, and often when we're getting older, we forget about our journey and we underestimate it, and we forget how valuable stuff are. But I'd walk up to kids and I'd say, hey, look, I can't skateboard because my balance isn't as good as yours. I'd give them a compliment, I'd make them feel good. But I have my scooter, so I've got my handles, I can hold on to that, and with that, I can go wherever you go. And so now, what we've done is, well, actually, sure, he can still play with us. That's pretty cool. He's made me feel good because he's just said about I've got awesome balance, and this is what we want to do together. And so whether in business that has gone on to, when a client rings up and they hear my voice on the phone and they're looking for an inspirational speaker, I've got to get straight into their mindset as to what they're thinking. And that's why comedy is such a great thing to have, a great thing to practice, because I often find that you can make people laugh, you can take people on whatever journey you want to take them on. And then going back to what you said, Naomi, before, I often Cindy Lauper in his song "Show Your True Colors," and that's why I love you. And I think the more you can do that, the more you can get comfortable with showing those true colors. Well, yeah,
Yeah,
it's an
I think
awesome book.
it's a matter of kind of, if you're honest with yourself and with who you are, people are generally pretty pleased with that. Like if you put on your front and you've got that public persona and people can see that you're a fraud and people see that you're being awkward or that you're hiding yourself, there's no incentive for them to, to be around you. 'Cause it's like, oh, that's just a person with a face on. Whereas when people see your absolute sort of your full self, like when you've got no filters, I think people are quite happy to come along with them because it gives them the option to also be themselves.
Yeah.
And ultimately, nobody wants to be having to play that game and navigate the world with a bit of awkwardness. It's like if we can all be our completely authentic, idiot, dickhead selves, everything's much more fun.
Yeah,
It's
and don't be afraid to be vulnerable. And that's the other thing. A lot of people think, oh, I've got to be polished and got to go out. And being vulnerable is real, And I think even as more so in this day and age, because we've got the social media thing that's kind of fucking stuff up for a lot of people, and they need to see that vulnerability is
Yeah.
real.
I think
I
people can
personally-
really, sorry, I cut you off, Cam. I'm on a bit of a delay here, sorry. I think especially with like you're saying with the social media and stuff, people can smell inauthenticness from miles away. Like everyone is so used to being lied to by corporations and advertising. And so when you come along and you're like, I am not bullshitting you. This is my life. This is how I get through. And this positivity that I have, or this viewpoint, is 100% not false. And if you can present that with that giving thing of like that wanting to like give that positive viewpoint, then it's going to connect. And with comedy, like laughing and falling in love are two of the few things that we all experience the same. Like everyone's got their different challenges or different this, but when you laugh, that sensation is unifying. And with disability, I talk a little bit in my show about it, is it's like that connection with the rest of humanity is thinner because our life experiences are so much different. And so everyone else has this shared experience of going through their day and everything being normal and being bored at their job, whereas our shared experience doesn't match that. So if finding these through lines, and I think laughter is one of the best ones. Is why we call it laugh, cry, or die.
Yeah, totally. You know, I'll start with that in the speech, and I'll get people, you know, I'll use that line I said with you guys. You know, you guys can notice I walk funny and I talk funny and I'm not drunk. And the more able-bodied that audience is, the more laughter there is. You know, they just erupt, and it's like this. Oh, thank goodness we can relax. You know, because you walk up on the stage and they're thinking, oh shit, this isn't. And then you've identified something, but all kind of thinking you've lived and feel okay with that. Oh, phew, I thought I was living in a world where I couldn't say words like that, or I couldn't make that kind of assumption about someone. But as soon as we've identified that, now we're talking about having dreams and goals. We're talking about being a kid and what that was like. We're talking about growing up. We're talking about wanting to conquer the world and be the best that we can be. And yet challenges are going to come up, but that's part of life. And it's how we perceive it, it's how we deal with it. And so now everyone's like, yeah, 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 give me more, give me more, give me more.
Yeah, it's like getting rid of that taboo
Yeah,
and unspoken thing that frees you up then, because people might look at you and go, oh, you're doing really well considering you've got cerebral palsy. And it's like,
yeah,
hang
come
on.
on, man,
Yeah, it's
come
like, how about
on.
you're doing amazing regardless? It's like when people say to me, like, oh, you're so brave and doing stuff. It's like, well, really, how about just you're doing awesome stuff? You know, I go on stage and people go, oh, you're so brave to do that considering you might have a seizure. And it's like, how about it's just really awesome to go on stage? Don't even worry about the seizure stuff. That's just going to happen, you know, in
Yeah,
the back of my head. And it's
yeah.
like, yeah, just being inspired by what you have achieved rather than being inspired because somebody with cerebral palsy has done a thing.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think you know, and I always got challenged because I'd often use a language and it would be disabled person. And in my view, I've always seen it as a person with a disability because you're also a person who is female, a person who is male, a person who is blonde, a person who is gay, a person who is straight. You know, we have all these things, and above that is our name, Stephen, Kim, and Naomi. And that's who we are. And we've got all these little bits underneath us, just like every single one of us is. And
Mm.
it's now, what part of that life are you gonna that define you more? Or are you just gonna take that awesome from every bit? And awesome, you know, starts with awe. And so awe is always the things that are a little bit scary. You don't think you can do it, but you get to the other side of it and you're like, oh, that's awesome. You know, I can be that person. I can take a risk. I can do a bungee jump. I can climb Mount Kilimanjaro. That was one of my highlights, you know. And it wasn't about climbing it. It was about going, what do I need to be inspired to make this dream my reality? Because a lot of people will have a goal. They'll go, I want to climb Kilimanjaro. And then they let life get in the way. And I knew that that was going to be part of the problem for the majority of my audiences. I have to go, oh, I want to do that, but things are going to get in the way. So for me to get to Kilimanjaro, I contacted 20 people and I invited them all to come up with me. And then I had 19 people, and those 19 people are what kept me accountable. So on those days when it's wet and cold and shitty, I'm like, well, if I stop, I'm going to disappoint the rest of that team. So building that team around you is really vital and important for
What?
whatever those goals
It's
may
I
be.
think that thing about having, like team and something that I've really struggled with, and I'm just kind of starting to rebuild, is that like the support networks around you and stuff. But there's when we talk about disability support networks, we're always talking about like somebody who helps someone take a shower or do this and that, but
Yeah.
it's like it's the same support networks that anyone without a disability has, and your friends and your loved ones and this. And my family are very far away and we're quite disconnected. I haven't talked to my sister or my dad for like a long time. And I was kind of getting down about that. And then I had this image of Corey, Corey Gonzalez Macuer, who I opened a show for last night. And we went out and we had a great time. And he gave me this huge hug. And he was like, I really appreciate you, man. You're really funny. You did a great show. It's an awesome job. We had a great time. Like, you're fucking rad. And I was sitting in my chair and I just kind of like had this picture of like Corey was like patting me on the back. And then Nay came along and was like, yeah, you're fucking rad, dude. And the friend of our family who looks after my son Lewis a lot, that she's like Auntie Kate and stuff. And I was like connecting with that because especially I don't know how different it is for people who are born with disabilities, but for people with acquired disabilities, I focus so much on the things that I've lost and the connections that I don't have. But like you're saying, like that message of like picking up the rocks that you do have, instead of looking at all the shiny ones that are someplace else. And one more thing, and then I'll let you guys talk. You were talking with like your parents and stuff and like having a kid. One of the analogies that we got given was, if your kid has cerebral palsy or something like that, and then there's this thing where all of your friends are going to Spain for a holiday, but you've ended up in Amsterdam. And Amsterdam's cool, and Amsterdam has lots of different things, but you never stop looking at Spain and being like, well, it's warm there. But if you can focus on the cool architecture and the canals and the drugs and the hookers, then maybe you're in a better place, really.
There's that grass is always greener kind of mindset, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's just a human thing. I got a quote the other day, and it was from my old school principal, who I've had a friendship with this guy for 25, 30 years now, and he's written a book, and in that book he said, if you judge a fish on its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing it's stupid.
Yeah, it's that
it's like you just need to find one thing that you enjoy. And if you enjoy it, you don't even need to enjoy it at first, but find some kind of potential in it. I didn't enjoy speaking at first, but I kept going at it, and it developed, and it became a hobby and a side hustle, and then ultimately a career, because it was about just going, well, why not? And the reasons for saying yes to stuff were way more awesome than the perceptions were saying no. And it was when I stopped being an athlete, I didn't think of myself as being a Paralympic athlete or a disabled athlete. I was just an athlete, right? And so moving on from being an athlete was really scary, because this is where my support circle was. This is everyone I knew. I told everyone, but I wasn't going to stop until I was #1 in the world. And then other opportunities came up, and I was really conflicted. I was like, what do I do? Like, do I stay doing this thing I don't really want to do anymore, or do I move on? But if I move on, what will I lose? And someone said to me, Cam, people don't support you for what you do. They support you for who you are. And that's what I want to dig into people when we're speaking, is who are you? Because you can then frame that to build stuff.
Yeah, it's like if you're going to judge somebody on their job or their achievements or their possessions, rather than who they are day to day. If you sit in a room with somebody and have a heart to heart and you have a real genuine chat, it's not because they're an accountant or a solicitor or a teacher or a doctor. It's because they're a fun, healthy, minded person to spend time with.
Yeah,
and it's that personal connection with people.
And you want to be around people that get you thinking and stimulated and all that stuff. And the more difference we have around us, the more we get that, I feel sorry for people that are stuck and they're just around the same people, and the people that don't light them up, or they've only seen that little part of the world. One of the greatest things I got growing up was the opportunity to see how other people live and to travel the world. And that wasn't because we had money. We didn't. It was just about going mum and dad valued that, you know, they wanted us to see how other people lived so that we could appreciate how we lived and we could see those opportunities more.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think
A friend of mine said that you can tell who your people are is when you walk away, you spent some time with them, and do you walk away feeling a little drained or do you feel filled up? Like when they leave the room, are you like, oh, I just need to have a sit down? Or are you like, you're buzzing and you're like, right, what's next? What's next?
Yeah.
And that's your people, is the ones who fill you up. And I get that from my family. Like all my chats with them, if I'm feeling down, I go to my family and it's like, yeah, they're my people. They've got my back. Like my mum, I call her my cheerleader, because whatever happens in life, she's like, go for it, Nate, go for it, Nate. Who do you need me to fight for you? You know, and it's like having those people that are 100% behind you and you are equally 100% behind them. Everyone steps up. Everyone gets to have a better life, a more fulfilled, exciting life,
Yeah.
because it's so easy. Like specifically, I think for myself, because I don't know when a seizure is going to hit, it would be so easy to sit in my lounge and be like, oh no, I can't risk going out because I might have a seizure, or you know, feeling a bit scared of the world. And it's like I could sit in my lounge all day long, but there's stuff that I want to do. I want to get out and do some things. And so I think, say with you, I don't think you see yourself as disabled. You don't go, oh, morning, I'm Cam, I'm disabled. I don't wake up and go, hey, I'm Nay, I've got seizures. It's like, oh yeah, that kind of happens in the sort of back of your mind. The actual you, the actual one who's doing stuff, doesn't have that label on you.
Yeah.
And I think, like, to go back a little bit to like I hate saying like gifts of a disability, or like the the things that you get,
It's
because
just life, man. This is the life we've got, and it's what we've chosen to do. People will say to me, "Oh, Cam, do you ever think about what life would be like if you didn't have cerebral palsy?" No, I don't, because fuck it, I can't. One, I can't change that, and two, like, no, do you know what life would be like if you were a female or male or whatever, right? You know, some people out there might go, yeah, I do. But, you know, and generally, you are who you are.
So much of the our modern 21st century late stage capitalism hellhole that we live in, it's all based around, what don't you have? You don't have the new car, you want to get that thing. Your neighbor has a nicer house, so you want to get a nicer house. Advertising is just, here's a thing you don't have that you need to be happy. And when you are forced by circumstance to stop and see where you are and what does make you happy, and then you get to do it. Like, I mean, like I was saying, you know, when I go on stage, I'm giving to the audience, but the side effect is I get that love, that connection that I want. So by giving, you get. And I think the careers and creativity with a disability is a really interesting thing, I think, because so many disabled people kind of have to get there, you know?
Yeah, you're forced to look at an alternative way of living. It's like, if you're challenged, that you're not going to just wake up, do the 9 to 5, which is, you know, a fine thing for people to do. But when that's out of your hands, it's like, right, well, how am I going to entertain myself? And how am I going to find those connections with other people? And, you know, whatever creative field that is, it becomes an option for you. It's like you're saying with the gifts of the disability, there is something to be gained. Like, I'm a better person, I think, from having seizures. I'm less judgmental of people. I'm more accepting of differences. I am into the creative stuff. I have less fear of looking like an idiot in the world, because that's out of my hands. I'm going to look like an idiot. And so your sort of hand's been forced to grow as an individual, as cheesy as that sounds. But I think when you're not challenged, you can plod along in life a lot easier, because it fits.
You were a boring shit before you had seizures.
I was massively boring shit beforehand. No, I wasn't. But I did.
No, you were.
Yeah, it's such a, like, I think this conversation can, I mean, it's such a big conversation, right? You know, as we're saying this, my mind's going in all these different ways, because it'd be really interesting to see. I don't know if anyone's ever done it, but just firstly, what is success? So that's a big question, you know, because that's different for different people. But then if it was a study of just what makes successful people. So there's a few things. People go, oh, look, Cam, you've got a disability in your speaker. What a kind of norm, if they actually think it's a normal thing to do. And especially when I speak with other people with disabilities, they go, well, yeah, of course it's go on and be a speaker. The amount of disabled speakers I meet doing what I do, fucking hardly any, right? I'm never sitting a stage. So that rules that out of the question. That this is just what you do when you have a disability. And then there's also, well, when you're able-bodied, you know, not every able-bodied person becomes a millionaire or billionaire or a CEO of a company. And those were the people that I climbed Mt Kilimanjaro with. And when we had lots of time to talk, and I asked them, I said, you know, what got you to your level of success in life? And they all said at the point of getting comfortable, we pushed ourselves harder. And when I look at us three here, we're pushing ourselves, you know, just doing this podcast, having this conversation. It would have been easy to just wake up or not wake up and be here and be in bed. And I think whether you've got cerebral palsy or seizure or chronic pain or so-called able-bodied is how much are you willing to push yourself? Because that's where the disability, whoever you are, kind of starts to come in, you know. Disabled definition comes down to you can't do something, and whether you've got that label on you from birth or you require it, well, are you going to let that rule you?
Yeah, exactly. Are you going to?
You know, those studies, you know, I think just people are people and what you make of it. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I feel that some people just overcomplicate it. You know, older people will say, "Oh, Cam, I'll never be successful because I've had a comfortable life." Well, fuck, that's your call, that's your belief. You know, I know people who are just as comfortable and able and normal as you who are crushing it and killing it. So they just chose
Well,
to do
there's one of our other guests, that blind woman, Julie. She's writing 1 million names in Braille.
Yeah, awesome.
And
I
she
know.
was just like, here is a big fuck off thing that I'm gonna do because fuck you, that's why.
Yeah, do you know how many names she's up to now? Because
Oh,
she's been doing it for a while, eh?
yeah, she sent us our names. I've got our names in Braille here, but I don't know what number she's at the minute. I'll contact her actually and find out. She's
That's a good question. We should have like a little counter like on the screen. That's like how far Julie's gotten on her quest.
yeah.
She's in New Zealand, though, eh?
Yeah, she's down in Dunedin, and she's really great guest on the podcast, and she's just like every other creatively disabled person that we've spoken to. It's this vibe of yeah, fuck yeah, man, I'm gonna do something, and
Yeah.
it's
So I was going to say
the
one of the things that she said that really got to me was we were joking about getting the USB rechargeable eyeballs to replace her blind ones.
Yeah.
And she said, that's assuming I don't want to be blind. That's assuming I want to change things. And it was like, oh, yeah, we immediately put her disability as, oh, that must be awful. Let's change it. And she was like, well, I'm fine, actually. I don't need to change to fit into your mold. Like, how about just letting me do my life? And that ableist sort of assumption that we made, that made me
even as spazzes.
yeah.
Well, yeah, there's sometimes I'll park, like, I remember a while ago, I parked in a disabled car park. No, I don't have a disabled label. I don't believe in it. I don't feel I need it. But give us, I walked out of my car and put on the limp.
I am disabled, honest.
You know, like, come on, mate. Everyone's like, what the fuck? I'll probably walk more normal with my limp, right? So, yeah, there's a bizarre thing, life.
Why do you not have the blue placard?
Why do I need it?
I don't know. I guess, well, when you did sport, what sport was it that you did? And you said athletics, but like which one
Yeah,
specifically?
100 meters, 200 meters. I'm a track, quick,
Yeah.
fast stuff. It was over the quickest. I just, I guess I've just never got the card because of, yeah. Why, I don't want to buy into that. I'm lucky I don't need it, right? I can walk, I have mobility, I have fitness, so yeah.
It was one thing you said before that registered for me was that you're saying you were like, I'm not going to stop till I'm number one in the world.
Hmm.
And then something else came on and you're like, actually no. And I think something that's what's more important than actually achieving that goal is holding it. Like we had my wife and I, we refurbished a house bus that we lived in for 5 years, and the goal was that we were going to refurbish the house bus and we were going to tour around schools and do like some kind of school family magic show thing, and we were going to live on the road and it was going to be great.
Hmm.
And we never got there. We refurbished it and we just sold it, but it was the push towards the thing that's the important part, and the not stopping, that's the important part. Is like, I'm going to keep pushing, and if I don't get there and something else happens and I need to do a different thing, that's fine. But like still having that cool goal, that vibe, that
Yeah.
I don't want to say
That,
vibe, but
that having that attitude throughout it doesn't matter what the actual end result is, but that attitude of pushing onto things, having a goal,
Yeah.
being positive about it. It's like I had a friend, I think I've mentioned it before, that wanted to learn guitar, but said, "Oh, but I'm never going to be a famous guitarist." And it's like, yeah, but you might learn 2 or 3 chords. Wouldn't that be fun? And it's like just having that. Let's give it a go. Let's aim towards
Yeah.
something, but enjoy it along the way.
Yeah, and because what might it lead on to? So for me with my athletics, that's why I wanted to move on. So you'll remember earlier I said I wanted to travel, I wanted to entertain and connect. That's been the dream. The dream was never to be an athlete, but being an athlete was part of that journey. And it was, no one when I was at school was saying, "Oh, Cam, you know what, you could be a speaker." No one was saying, but someone did say, "Cam, you know what, you could be an athlete." And so that was the thing that gave me enough. Oh, okay, I'm going to focus on that and I'm going to be the best that I can be at that. And I'm going to work towards it and I'm going to embrace opportunity and I'm going to keep turning up. And then when someone said, "Hey, Cam, you could come and speak to us," I thought, okay, I'll give that a go. And then I looked at my life as an athlete and I realized that, yeah, that could be cool. But as a speaker, I could build something that would build more, I was,
mm,
um, and so that's when the transition started to occur. So it wasn't that we're not giving up on what we've said we're going to do. We're striving towards who we want to be and discovering
mm,
that. I interviewed Moses Mackay from Salomia a few years ago when I was doing a few podcasts, and he said to me, "Have passion in life, but stay curious." And I thought that was such a cool statement because it's that curiosity that takes us in ways in which we never thought we could go. But if we
mm.
stay committed to that passion because someone said you've got to be committed and you've got to be focused and you've got to not let stuff get in the way. And if you do, you're a failure. But when we start going, "Oh, I don't like this," and when we start thinking, "Oh, I don't like myself," and when we start to dig ourselves into a really big hole because we're now doing stuff just for the sake of doing it, and we're doing it because of all the assumptions we have around it.
I think
Yeah.
it's like for able-bodied normie 9 to 5 people who, and it's that thing that I was told, especially growing up in America in the 80s, was like, you work hard and then you will get a house and then you will a wife and then you will be happy. And so many people, especially like people who are successful with money, like will get to that place and they'll look around and they're like, "Oh, wait, there's a piece missing to this puzzle." And because we've had that curiosity, and we've embraced that creativity. And I think a big part of becoming an artist is that curiosity of like, can I do this thing? What would that look like? And then making what comes out of your hands or out of your mouth on stage match what's in your head. Like, can I make a show that will kill and inspire and do this stuff? Like, will it takes time to do ones that don't do that until you get to the that matches the thing that's there. And you have to like really be willing to embrace failure, which with disabilities, you're like, oh yeah, no, I've already done that. I've disappointed my father-in-law profoundly because I can't do the things that he thinks I should do. So let's just go the fuck ahead and have fun.
Yeah. I had a couple of years back, I had a very practical lesson on that. So I'd gone on that 3-day hike up into the mountains, and I went on my own. And a lot of people are like, are you sure with your seizures? Should it be a good idea going up a mountain? And I was like, yeah, I want to go up a mountain on my own. I want to stay overnight and have an adventure. And so I went on my adventure and had a seizure up there, broke my ankle, kind of ripped my foot off, got evacuated out by helicopter, and was with a broken ankle for a while. And
How many screws went into that ankle, Naomi? No, I don't think Cam doesn't know. Her fucking foot was hanging by a thread. It was just flesh. It was it was nasty.
Yeah.
Where were you? What mountains did you go?
I was up in the Richmond Ranges. Yeah. And it was, I mean, it was awesome. But so I went to Starville Hut, which was like 6 or 7 hours hiking, stayed there for the night. And then the next day went across to Slatey Hut to have a little play, and then come back to stay at Starville for another night. And it was on the way back from Slatey Hut that it was in a very tree-rooted sort of area. And I had a seizure and came round and was sitting on the floor, and my foot was off to one side. And I was like, that's not ideal. And I tried to put my foot back on and it didn't work. And so, yeah, long story, I had to, get the helicopter and got taken out of there.
How many screws was it in the end?
14 screws, 2 plates, a hinge, and a rope that they call it a tight rope that holds the whole lot together to stop me doing the splits over my own foot. So quite a lot of stuff in there. But
no, you must just be sitting on metal detectors everywhere.
Well, I've got all the bits of metal. I'm going to build my own self out of metal. But I that night, the lesson that gave me that night in the hospital, I was like, okay, my trip was a failure. Everyone sees that I went up a mountain and I shouldn't have done that because I'm disabled and I'm an idiot and I've brought this on myself and I failed at my plan. And then when I got home and I'm sitting on the sofa and people are asking, like we're talking now about the story, it's like, okay, had I not had that situation, my story would be, I went up a mountain, stayed overnight, and I came down from a mountain. That's a nice story.
Yeah.
Whereas the story I had is, I went up a mountain, pulled my foot off, got a helicopter, came back, and it was amazing. It's like, I've got a much better story because of a thing that happened.
What did people say to you, and especially the guys or people that came and rescued you? What did they say?
Oh, you did the right thing by calling for a helicopter. They were just like,
but did anyone go, oh, yeah, you shouldn't have been here or anything like that?
I got a couple of eye rolls, like, no, yeah, what did you expect kind of thing. But
most of the people just were like, we're here to rescue you. This is not going to plan. And this is what we do, right? Because accidents can happen to anyone.
Exactly. Most people, if anything, found it kind of amusing.
Yeah.
It's like, you don't often pull your foot off up a mountain. And like,
but you could have, but people without epilepsy do that shit all the time as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And as well, I think the good thing is because I'm used to being injured, I'm used to adverse conditions in a lot of things. It wasn't as terrifying as I think it may have been for people who haven't faced challenges. Like, I know that, the endorphins and stuff or the adrenaline would have been kicking in. But when I was sitting there with my foot off, it was very much like, okay, that's not ideal. What do I do? How do we be practical about this? And it crossed my mind, oh, you might lose your foot. And it's like, okay, that's not an issue right now. That's kind of unimportant. And so I think that's one of the positive things taken from being disabled, is it kind of makes you prioritize what are you going to pay attention to. And at that point, my priority was, should probably get a lift out of here. Should probably need a hand, you know, and it's that
Like,
it was okay to reach out for help.
but like, you know, Tracy from accounting, who broke her foot, would spend the first 2 hours freaking out about her broken foot and then get hypothermia because it got dark. But because you're really good at facing adversity, like I think we do adversity push-ups, you know, then when something hard happens, you're like, okay, it's time to do 5 more press-ups, you know, instead of going, oh my God, I have to do all these fucking press-ups. Oh, I can't do it. Oh my God. That's
Yeah,
Tracy.
yeah. It's that practicality, but as well, it's the mindset. Like when I called for a helicopter, and I was like, okay, so I don't know how long I'll be here because I'm not a priority, because I'm not dying, you know, somebody in a car crash or whatever, they should come first. And so it's like, I might be here for a while. So okay, I've got my tent ready if I need to get that out. I put my warm things on because I was under tree cover. I might not be found for a while. I took some paracetamol just in case it might start hurting a bit more.
Yeah.
So I took my painkillers and I had my water, and it was like, okay, I've done all the practical stuff and got the helicopter on the way. And it's like, then I had to be mindful, because I thought, if I focus on the wrong thing here, I might, because it wasn't hurting really at that point. It's like, if I start thinking about my ankle, I'm going to have some pain. And so I thought, okay, I need to do something to keep some positivity. And so I tidied up some sticks, because that's something I could do. I couldn't get away from the situation. I couldn't get away from pain that might happen. I couldn't get away from the brokenness, but I could focus my attention here and play a little bit. It's like, oh, I'll make a little stick house or whatever. And while I waited for the ambulance, for the helicopter. And I think it's that mindfulness that we're forced to be in. It's like, you're aware of where your mind might go. So what are you going to do with it? And like you were saying, Cam, with people saying, what would you be like if you weren't disabled? It's like, that's something you can't change.
No.
And if you can't change it, why are you wasting your energy on that? Why not look at the things that you can impact?
Yeah. But also what you mentioned there about taking that time to play and have fun, that's so important. And you know, a few months ago, we bought my first house 3 years ago here in Auckland, and we've got this pathway next to our house. And there's always rubbish up the path, you know. We've had a lot to be here, and I look up this rubbish and I think to myself, man, surely someone's going to come through and clean this up. And I remember my school principal, and we'd get to the end of school lunch, and if there was any rubbish out on the playground, he'd ring a bell and he'd say, you've got to come here, you've got to clean up, and you're not going back to class until this environment is clean. And a lot of parents would complain about that. But I'd be like, what do you mean you're taking this kid out of school to clean up the environment? And he said, well, if you've got a clean environment, it's going to look after you. And so I reminded myself of that as I was walking, looking at all this rubbish. And so I picked it up. And now what I do is I just walk around the perimeter of our house, you know, every now and then, and pick stuff up. And it feels really good. It's not what I do. And just imagine if we all looked after the perimeter of our property, both in our mind, our body, our soul, and just what a different world it would be. And, you know, it's easy to think, oh, someone else has got to do that. Or when I was mentoring some young people with disabilities, and some who had disabilities their entire life, they grew up believing that everyone else will do something for you. And there was a feeling of entitled to this. I'm entitled to be supported. And when we start to give ourselves that mentality, rather than how we started this whole conversation of stepping out there and offering ourselves to the universe, we block ourselves. But when we look to make a contribution, whatever that contribution may be, we start to see the opportunities. And so with that playfulness, is taking that time out from the day to day. And then sometimes that is painful, especially when you've got a broken foot. But it's enough of a distraction to go, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to nail it.
That play is so important, especially in my work as the operations manager for the Aotearoa New Zealand Circus Association.
That's awesome.
because I'm fancy. But like I can only do it for like an hour, and then my brain is minced because of my pain disease. But I'm lucky enough that the people that I work with are really value that hour. So I'll like do an hour, and at the end of a meeting, I'm like, oh, I'm like getting it starting to fade, and like, okay, we'll stop here and we can pick up in emails or stuff. And it's great. We could talk, I'm sure, forever, Cam, but it's getting
Yeah.
towards the end of recording a clock.
Yep.
Thank you. So hopefully we'll have you on again, Cam, and we can
Hey,
continue
well,
talking about this.
I was just thinking one thing I'd love to do is I'd love to do a show with you guys. How cool would that be?
Yeah,
It'd
man.
be awesome to three of us on stage. You do what you do, I do what I do. I reckon that would be how awesome. Like, man.
we
Well,
should-
we've
We should sort it
talked.
out. We should do it.
So watch this space, You'd be
Yeah,
like,
man, we'll do something
yeah,
awesome.
put it
Cool.
out
Well, thank
there.
you so much for listening, human beings on the screen.
Thanks for having me and have an awesome day.
We hope you have a fantastic day. We'll catch you next week.
Bye.